Welcome. Today I'm gonna be discussing wishlist. So, first thing I want to see. Well, my career was. Hold on, I gotta fix this mic. My career this year was better than it ever has been, ever. And they continue to amaze us every year. But there's always some stuff wrong with it, it's never going to be perfect. But the one thing that I really want to see more than anything are tryouts for high school. And also, I also want to see different storylines. So we're not doing, so like maybe you could grow up in a different environment and that would affect how you played, what you were better at. And also, I don't know what the least you can be, like the worst rating you can have. But what I am saying is, once we find that out, you start at that rating, and then you get a certain amount of attribute upgrade points. So like maybe you get like 500 or 600, and you get to choose what you want to upgrade at first to start off how you want your playstyle to be. And geez, I'm concentrating and I'm losing my focus on defense. But you can choose how you want your playstyle to be, and also what you can do is on those different storylines too, you depending on how well you played, during sometimes your friend, you could go through all 4 years of college, you could go through 1, you could go through 2, 3, but you start off in your senior year of high school, and if you play good enough, you could be drafted straight out of high school. I want to see that, being drafted straight out of high school, or going to college. And also, that'd be one of the best. I think I'd pay. I didn't get the gold legit edition. I just got the regular one. I pre-ordered that one, but that's definitely worth $80, especially with all the stuff that comes with it. It's worth every penny that you have to spend for it, and it's just worth it. That'd be amazing, And then one thing I want to say is the fouls, and not just in my career, the CPU, the CPU just never seems to foul. They never call fouls on them. It's crazy. And you'll probably see during this game, I'll get a foul, but if I do this, and I do that, not that, but if I were to take just a simple jump shot, like if I was to do this, see that? No foul. They would have called that in the NBA, in real life. Not that though. And also, speaking of like real life, we need the play style to be more realistic, like people moving around, bumping into each other. And also, your story could also be, there we go, there's a foul, but your story could be different on depending what your decisions are, if you choose to celebrate with this teammate and not this teammate, and maybe you have like bad chemistry and that messes up, so like he's not, you two aren't working well together and during games, or it's just way too easy. Nick Young, I'll give you an example. Nick Young and D'Angelo Russell. They're both really good players. You know, they're both really good players, but D'Angelo Russell snitched on, and obviously that didn't go down well, so, you know, they're not going to pass to each other as often, or, you know, they're just not going to be playing as well as they usually do together, like they used to. Let's say, like, Dwayne Wade and LeBron James would, back with the big three. They wouldn't be playing like that, you know, they wouldn't be passing and knowing exactly what you want to do, because there's no trust there. There's just nothing there. And that'd be cool to see. And also, like, not only that, but another thing I wanted to see is with decisions as well, is how your story plays out. If you decide, let's say you get bumped hard, or your teammate gets thrown to the ground, or like you get thrown to the ground, you know, like that should be a thing, you know, like you can get into fights and stuff. Whether you choose to walk it off or continue arguing or fighting with that person, whether you continue to argue or fight with that person is going to affect, you know, what happens, how your story plays out. It should play out depending on your personality. Like, you can choose, and also, like, in the main menu, you know, of creating your My Career, you can choose what your personality should be. You know, like, choose the personality you want your players to have, your player or players to have, and that'd be a good thing. Next thing I want to talk about, injuries. You get, you know, it's like planned injury in 2K14, you know, you have planned injuries, you know, you have the planned flu game, or whatever, but it's just, you can't get injured in this game, or at least you don't see it. I won, you know, my third year in the NBA. I was 21 years old, and I won the MVP. You shouldn't be allowed to do that, you know? But with the MVP, it shows you how many games you played. So and I had played 78 out of the 82 games that season. So during the middle of the season, I got injured and I didn't know it. You know, I just got injured and I wasn't notified or something like that, or they didn't tell me. But you should be able to get injured. Like, it's a normal thing in the NBA. Like, let's say, you know, I drive. Here, I'll just let him take that real quick. So let's say, you know, this is actually my player. So let's say, you know, I do this. I do a spin move. You know, I try to cross him up, and I drive like this, you know, and then I spin right around, and I do that, and I land awkward. And you could, like, and it plays the instance that, you know, or maybe like I hit a screen and strain or sprain my wrist or something, or break a finger. You know, it should be something like that. You should be able to get injured, whether it's severely or anything, but, like, not career-ending injuries, because then, you know, what would be the fun of that? Or maybe, like, it'd put you out a season, you know, and you'd be behind, and your attribute would go down, your attributes and your overall, like that. Let's say I landed weird, or something like that, or I hit the rim too hard without, you know, and I, like, break my elbow, or I sprain my, my ankle. And it would show that, and they would take me out of the game, or they would call a timeout, or something like that. that seems like a really, nice feature to have. Like, not nice, like, but it should be true. Because some people in the NBA that play every, that they know they play every game, they don't get injured. Like this, they don't, they just don't get injured, and they play all 82 games. You do get injured, you sprain an ankle, you're out for 4 games or 2 games, depending on what your schedule is. It should be more like that. Now, I mentioned something about attributes. Now let's go into that. I'll just quick hit rematch. Let's just talk about the attributes. Like I said, after you get injured, maybe, you're not going to be as good as, you're not going to be as good as you were. Maybe that's slightly or drastically, Like, let's say, let's use Derrick Rose as an example. He won the MVP next season, pretty early in the season. He tears, I can't remember what he tore, I think it was his ACL. But, ACL or MCL, I don't know. He tore that, he had a really bad injury, and he was a really good player, and he still is a really good player, but he just wasn't the person he used to be, and he's starting to be, with all the injuries. Ooh, that's gonna go in. Nope. Alright. All the injuries, he's had, and it's just crazy. So, he was, for a time, he was more careful than he used to be, but, like, you have to readjust, like, how the NBA plays and how rough it is. That'd be nice. That'd be a nice feature. Honestly, that's a need feature right there. Injuries and stuff. And also, maybe you shouldn't use VC to upgrade your player, And also, we need the 2K, the old 2K upgrading style, where you would, you could upgrade each, category. But maybe after a game, you get like, these are like 2 different ideas for the same thing. So either after every game, they add up how many blocks, steals, assists, and points you had, and they take all that, minus your turnovers, so like they take points off for your turnovers. So let's say I score, let's say I score 10 points, like my rookie season, I scored 10 points, I get 5 assists, no block, or maybe like 1 block, and no steals. So 10, 5, and 1. What does that equal? 10, 5, 1. That's 16. So maybe you'd get like, and then let's say I have let's say I have 3 turnovers. I'm just giving numbers right now. You have 3 turnovers, so then you'd only have 13. That could have been a charge. But, so I'd only have 13 total. And so I'd get like 13 points used to upgrade my player. So I could upgrade like 1 attribute by 13, or distribute, or like do 13 attributes by 1, which I doubt someone would do, or like a couple by 5 and then 1 by 3, or 1 by 2 and then 1 by 1, something like that. And the next one is let's say you start, you know, you do that, you know, you get like a 500 or like 350 points to start out with to make your player that the distribution you want, you know, his play style. And then depending on how he plays every game, the attributes that you excelled at, you know, let's say, you know, like 40% for Stephen, you know, for an average NBA player, 40% three-point shooting in a game, that's pretty good. 30%, that's average. 20%, that's pretty poor. So you know, maybe if it's like 25%, or like, let's say I shoot only, maybe I shoot 10 threes in a game and I make one because I got cold or got knocked hard or something like that, you know, I'll make 1 out of 10 threes. My attribute would go down a couple points for my three, for my stand shot 3 and my moving shot 3. And let's say I made, you know, or if I got 40%, if it was like 30%, it'd stay the same, or maybe go up or down 1, you know, 1 or 2, nothing drastic that would change. That would change how many, you know, that would drastically change your shooting. And then, or let's say I got 40 or 50, maybe 60 or maybe 60% on a game. If I got 60% or more, or 60% or more on my threes, I would get, you know, like, trying to think of something. You know, I get, you know, I shoot 60%, you know, my 3-point shot would go up by like 5 to 10 points, which is something drastic. If you change how you play it in the next game, and hopefully you just keep going up until it hits 99 or something like that. Something like that. So you have no really, you have caps or something, you know, for like centers on their speed and, you know, their 3-point shot. And maybe for like a small forward, because LeBron James, his, you know, his 3-point shot isn't the best. It's never been the best. His attribute in this game, I think, is around 75 or like a 76. So, let's say, you know, like, or if it hits 99 and I have like a really bad game and I shoot, let's say, I'm trying to think of a good, I shoot 2 for 10, or like I shoot, you know, and my 3-point rating was 99, you know, it was a 99 at the time. I'm a point guard, you know, it's 99 at the time, and then all of a sudden, I have that really bad game, and it goes down to maybe like an 80, an 89, or like an 82, you know, changes like that. Those changes are really something I'd see. But the caps should be, the caps should need to be changed. I'm a point guard, you know, in my career, and my speed maxes out at around 88, and I'm 6'3". No, it doesn't, it's not even that. It's like 80, 86, or like 84. But I'm 6'3". John Wall, one of the fastest players of all time. His speed is around a 99, and he's the same height as me. So that my speed should cap off it in the 90s, you know, like 99, 98, something like that. And then Stephen Curry, 6'3", and his 3-point shot's a 99. And I'm 6'3", and my 3-point shot without the boost on it is only an 88. It's not bad, but it's not, you know, what a point guard should really be, especially if it's all the way upgraded, you know, the cap of it. so mine could max out at 99. Russell Westbrook, his dunk is in the 90s, I'm pretty sure. His dunking attribute rating. It's in the 90s. So we should, you know, just have, and he's 6'3", and I'm 6'3", and my dunk is only like caps out at 75, and we're both point guards, you know. He plays the same position as me, you know, but mine caps off at 75, and his is in the 90s. It needs to be like, you know, way up, you know. And you get to choose your play style, or either like the cap or like the play style, you know. Depending on what you upgrade first is what's gonna be your best, you know, the whole thing. Derrick Rose, he's really athletic, you know, one of the most athletic point guards in the league, and he, you know, he does all these crazy layups and amazing dunks, but his three-point shooting, it's crappy. You know, it could be a lot better. He shoots, you know, 25 to 33% every season. You know, but that play styles, you know. Now, the next thing I really want to talk about, it really involves, I don't know if this is my career. I guess it's just gameplay in general. That, right? It's like, I get, you know, like this, you know, I run, and I get in front of him, you know, I'm about to get in front of him, and all of a sudden he just, boom, he attracts to me. Or he knows exactly where I'm going, like that. You know? It's not like, you know, a normal occurrence. And there's a lot of bugs that need to be fixed. So let's say, you know, I go like this. I cross him up like that. And there's that little hesitation move that gives him just a little bit of time to catch up to me. I don't want to see that. The one other thing I would hate to see, the one thing that needs to be fixed, is when I do that, I didn't even touch him, and yet I still lost the ball. I might have gotten it back, but does that really matter? It's still, I could have lost it. And also, what really needs to be fixed in this is the realisticness of the game. You know, we have the same dive animations. We need more of those. You know, where you run and throw it in, catch it 1 foot, jump and throw it back in. That's a thing, you know, like, it's something that needs to be put in the game. You know, more animations. And another thing is that I didn't even want to do that, you know, those animations, they need to be fixed. And also the layups, you know, they're fine, but there's just a certain type of, you know, there are all these fancy layups, you know, that we just can't do. Like Derrick Rose does, you know, he goes up, he scoops it under. He, you know, he does like a windmill, like around, you know, around the guy's hand, you know, and throws it up. He scoops it up like that. And they don't have that. They don't have all that. And they don't have the contact, or you can't move around the guy's hand. It's either you make the shot, you miss the shot, or you get blocked. Pretty much it, you know? You don't maneuver around things. And also, they used to have that highlights reel, you know, like, or whatever it's called, where you could go back and you could look at, you know, the highlights of the game and like everyone's shots and stuff. They need to put that back. One thing I really miss, it was in like the past 2 or 3 NBA games, but not this one. They need to bring back the Sprite Slam Cam and get rid of that Kia Slam Cam. The Sprite Slam Cam, you can see how high you jump, you know. If I do a special dunk or like a special type of dunk, I want to see, you know, like, here, I'll show you. If I could do one. So, you know, I cross them up, hopefully. Oh, this is not going good for me. And I do that, you know, I slam it, and I get my head to the rim. I want to see how high I jumped, you know? I want to see it polished. I think that would be one of the best features. That used to be like one of the best features of the game. And also, what I want to see is a real MVP. You could choose like a cocky way to do it, you know, and everybody would hate you. Or you could choose like what a lot of players do, you know. I want to hear the speech. We don't have to choose the speech, but we do want to like hear it. Because whenever you get it, you know, you do a big speech and stuff like that. We should be able to hear that. All you do is you get it in the first round of the playoffs, and you're like, you know, the player says, oh, wow, you know, this is an honor to receive this award. Thank you. And let's go out and win tonight's game. That's all it is. Nothing special. And it's just, it's crazy. Another thing, a big man should not be able to do, in my part, should not be able to do, like, you're 7'3", and your speed is like in the 50s or maybe even the 40s, I don't know. You should not be able to do Stephen Curry's handles or Kyrie's or Jamal Crawford's. You should have big man crossover moves. You know, you shouldn't even be allowed to look at them. It's the worst thing I've ever seen, you know. And then point guards shouldn't be able to have, you know, everything needs to be position specific. And I think this is probably going to be the last thing I talk about for this episode. One of however many I decide to make. It's a new game mode called, they should change My Career to My Story. You know, have cutscenes like every season, up to three seasons for My Career. And they should change My Career to My Story, you know. You can choose the environment your player grows up in. And then you should make a game mode, call it like player's career, or like something like that. Something that has to do with careers. And you could choose like any player in the league and go through high school, and if they got drafted out of high school, you know, you go be drafted out of high school, you know? And then there'd be like points you can earn, and you can get them either a better draft pick or make them a bigger threat in the NBA than they are now. You know, like, I'm thinking, you know, he's not very good, he needs some help, but he's average. Like, man, this is kind of hard to think of. Any player. Jeez, why am I having such trouble with this? Maybe Nate Robinson, you know? I mean, he never really got that much attention. I mean, he was a great player, known for his, you know, dunking, for being so small. And you could change the way he played to give him a better overall, or change the NBA. You know, some kind of game mode like that. You know, I could choose Stephen Curry and I could make him play worse. Then, you know, I could have him take stupid shots and have his overall be, oh, hold on. His overall would be like a 79 instead of, you know, whatever it is now, like a 94 or like a 95, and see how much that would impact, you know, how the NBA is and the history and who wins championships and who wins MVPs. You know, I could take LeBron, make him still drafted out of high school, but I could make him, you know, when he goes into the NBA or something, he gets worse, or, you know, he gets an injury, he gets worse. You could be able to change up like a history mode, you know, like NBA Legends, like that kind of game mode. But instead of like that, it's like, it should be like NBA Game Changer, where you could go through like past years and, let's say, you know, in this game, this year, he gets this injury, comes back, you know, better, worse, the same, you know, and you could choose like how worse and like play around with what everything would be after that. I feel like that should be a thing. And I think one of the parts I really want to talk about this. Oh my god, hold on. Is if you notice, man, it's like right on the it's right on the tip of my tongue here. You know, you could choose like better or worse. You could choose how better, like slightly better, or like a lot better. You know, like they worked hard during the recovery. And also, when you take, let's say you could make Michael Jordan, you could make Michael Jordan drafted to a different team and see how the seasons play out, and then you can see like the highlights for every team and every player. I would pay, sorry about that, I would pay a lot of, like, I would pay $200 to see that game changed like that. You know, if I had the mental ability, like the capability to do such, like, you know, if I was smart enough, I'm not that smart, to, you know, be hired and help them do that, I would. And that is my NBA 2K wish list for now. Actually, no, wait. One more thing. It has to do with my team this year. Diamond players with 99 three-point ratings. They make every shot. Pretty much. They make almost every shot they take. You know? They make the dumbest of shots, and it's crazy. That needs to stop. You know, they can make shots, but it shouldn't be like that. Especially my team, where most people miss 27% of their shots. Not 27, they make 27% of their shots. That needs to change. Alright, well, for now, that's my NBA 2K17 wish list. Have a wonderful whatever it is.